The Nimble Lizard's Tales. In the dense emerald thicket of the gossamer forest, where sunlight filtered through the canopy like golden threads, there lived a small, nimble lizard named Kivra. Her scales shimmered like jade in the light, and her quick movements made her nearly invisible to predators. But Kivra was not an ordinary lizard. She had a curiosity so vast that staying in one place was unbearable. She yearned for adventure, not her own, but the stories of others. Kivra discovered a peculiar talent. She could climb unnoticed into the pockets, satchels, and packs of travelers passing through the forest. From these hidden perches, she observed their lives, absorbing the thrill of their adventures. The Scholar's Journey. The first traveler was a stooped old scholar named Reldon, carrying a heavy satchel filled with scrolls and ink bottles. Kivra slipped into a side pocket of his bag as he paused to rest near a stream. Soon, Reldon found himself in the ruins of a forgotten temple deep in the forest. From her hiding spot, Kivra watched as Reldon pieced together ancient inscriptions. Each word he deciphered caused the temple walls to glow faintly, as if the past were coming alive. When Reldon accidentally triggered a trapdoor, he descended into a chamber filled with golden artifacts and a ghostly guardian. The scholar's quick wit saved him. He recited a passage from his scrolls to soothe the spirit and left with a single artifact, a glowing crystal sphere. Kivra marveled at his bravery, her tiny heart pounding. She stayed with Reldon until he reached the edge of the forest, where she scurried away unseen. The Merchant's Peril. Her next perch was in the satchel of a portly merchant named Garvin, who was transporting spices and silks across the forest to a bustling city. Kivra nestled between bundles of cinnamon bark and saffron threads, enjoying their warm scents. The journey was treacherous. A band of brigands ambushed Garvin's caravan. Kivra watched as the merchant, with surprising agility for his size, pulled a hidden dagger from his boot and fought fiercely to protect his wares. When the brigands were finally driven off by his hired guards, Kivra felt a newfound respect for the man who had seemed so unassuming. The Bard's Song. One evening, Kivra found herself in the pocket of a young bard named Elira. Elira carried a lute strapped to her back and had a habit of humming tunes to herself. Kivra peeked out as they entered a lively village festival. The bard sang songs that brought tears to old eyes and laughter to young lips. Kivra was captivated by the way Elira wove magic into her music, making the flowers bloom brighter and the stars shine clearer. When a storm threatened to end the festival, Elira played a melody so sweet that the winds calmed, and the rain held off until dawn. Kivra felt an odd sense of kinship with the bard, whose nimble fingers on the lute mirrored her own agility. The Knight's Veiler. Finally, Kivra climbed into the cloak of a wandering knight named Dane. Unlike the others, Dane noticed her almost immediately. "Well, what do we have here?" he said, pulling her gently from his pocket. His voice was kind, and his hazel eyes crinkled with amusement. Instead of tossing her aside, he placed her back in his pocket. "You're lucky I don't mind a stowaway." Kivra stayed with Dane as he traveled through treacherous lands. She saw him defend a village from a marauding wyvern, using both skill and courage to fell the beast. She watched him comfort frightened children and share his meager food with beggars on the road. Over time, she grew attached to the knight's steadfast heart. A partnership begins. One evening, as they camped under the stars, Dane spoke to her as if she were an old companion. "You've been with me long enough, little one. What should I call you?" Kivra chirped softly, tilting her head. Kivra, then Dane decided, as if the name had come from the stars themselves. From that night, she perched on his shoulder rather than hiding in his pocket. Together, they ventured across kingdoms, facing trials both mundane and magical. Kivra's nimble ways and keen observations often saved Dane from danger. She scouted ahead, slipping unnoticed into enemy camps or retrieving small treasures from hard-to-reach places. In return, Dane shared his stories, his food, and his warmth, forging a bond that neither could have anticipated. The lizard's dream. Over time, Kivra no longer needed to borrow the stories of others, she was living one of her own. Together, she and Dane became legends in their own right, the knight and the lizard, an inseparable duo whose courage and cunning inspired songs and tales across the land. Kivra often thought of the travelers she had shadowed and the lessons she had learned from their lives. Each had left a mark on her, just as she had, unknowingly, left her mark on them. But with Dane, she felt a sense of belonging, a home she never knew she sought. And so, the nimble lizard's journey continued, no longer in the shadows, but in the light of companionship and adventure. The lizard's courageous adventures. Life on the road with Dane had been a whirlwind of battles, discoveries, and moments of quiet companionship. For Kivra, each day brought something new. She had grown from a mere observer of adventures into an active participant, earning her place beside the steadfast knight. One evening, after a long journey, Dane and Kivra returned to his humble cottage at the edge of a small village. The house was modest but cozy, with walls adorned with relics of Dane's past quests and a sturdy oak chest in the corner that held his most precious possessions. The robbery. When they arrived, something was amiss. The door was ajar, and the chest lay overturned, its contents scattered across the floor. Dane's face darkened as he knelt to examine the mess. "They've taken the crystal," he muttered grimly. Kivra chirped questioningly, tilting her head. Dane explained, "It's the artifact from Relden's temple, the glowing crystal sphere. It holds knowledge that could be dangerous in the wrong hands." Tracks outside the house told the story, two thieves on foot, heading toward the dense woods. Without hesitation, Dane prepared to follow. Kivra, her curiosity piqued and her loyalty unwavering, scampered onto his shoulder. The chase. The thieves were skilled, leaving few traces, but Dane and Kivra were determined. The trail led to a shadowy cave deep in the forest. Inside, the air was damp and filled with the faint echo of voices. The thieves were arguing over how to unlock the crystal's secrets. Kivra slipped from Dane's shoulder, her emerald scales blending seamlessly with the mossy cave walls. She scurried closer, her tiny claws silent against the stone. In the dim light, she spotted the crystal tucked into the pocket of the larger thief's cloak. With deft precision, Kivra climbed onto the thief and into the pocket. But the crystal's glow made it difficult to remain unnoticed. The thief reached for her, his fingers grazing her tail as she darted out, clutching the crystal between her nimble paws. A shout rang out. The thieves gave chase, but Kivra's agility proved unmatched. She darted through narrow crevices and over jagged rocks, eventually leaping back into Dane's arms with the crystal secure. Dane's sword flashed as he faced the pursuing thieves, his skill quickly dissuading them. Defeated and empty-handed, they fled into the night. A celebration. Victorious, Dane and Kivra resumed their journey, deciding to celebrate with a stop at a nearby village bakery renowned for its warm, spiced buns. The smell of fresh bread wafted through the air as they approached, but the bakery itself was unusually quiet. Inside, they found the baker, an elderly woman named Martha, wringing her hands in distress. "Mice," she lamented. "Dozens of them. They've taken over my bakery. Without a cat in town, I don't know what to do." Dane glanced at Kivra, who was already surveying the room with a glint of determination in her golden eyes. The knight chuckled. "Looks like you've got another challenge, little one. The lizard versus the mice." Kivra wasted no time. She darted into the shadows, her tiny body perfectly suited for the task. The mice were clever, darting into nooks and crannies too small for even a cat, but Kivra was nimbler still. She chased them through flour sacks, under tables, and into the cracks of the bakery walls. The mice squeaked in alarm, scattering as she snapped at their heels. It wasn't easy. One particularly bold mouse leapt onto her back, forcing her to twist and shake it off. Another tried to corner her, but Kivra outmaneuvered it, sending it scurrying out the door. The chase was exhausting, and Kivra's jade scales were dusted with flour by the end of it, but she succeeded. The bakery was finally clear of mice. The reward. Martha was overjoyed. "You've saved my bakery. And a lizard, of all things. Who would have thought?" She handed Dane and Kivra a basket of freshly baked buns, their golden crusts glistening with butter. "These are on the house," she said with a smile. Outside, under the warm glow of the setting sun, Dane and Kivra sat by the village fountain, sharing the delicious treats. Kivra nibbled on a piece of warm dough, chirping contentedly as Dane chuckled. "You've outdone yourself again, partner." Kivra basked in the moment. Her life had transformed from one of quiet observation to one of action, courage, and companionship. As she perched on Dane's shoulder, the world stretched out before them, a tapestry of adventures waiting to be woven. And so, the nimble lizard and her steadfast knight continued their journey, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them, one daring escapade at a time. The lizard's legacy, Kivra's third adventure. Life on the road had become second nature to Dane and Kivra. Their partnership was an unspoken bond, built on trust, shared dangers, and quiet evenings by campfires. The knight and the nimble lizard had earned a reputation that preceded them, and their stories were whispered in taverns and marketplaces. But even legends must face new challenges, and for Dane and Kivra, the next adventure began with a simple knock on a door. A mysterious invitation. It happened in the bustling town of Haridal, where Dane and Kivra had stopped for supplies. The streets were alive with merchants hawking their wares, children chasing one another, and the sound of a nearby blacksmith hammering steel. As Dane polished his sword in their rented room at the inn, there came a knock at the door. Standing in the hallway was a young courier with a sealed envelope in hand. "For Sir Dane," the boy said, bowing slightly before scurrying away. Dane opened the letter, his brow furrowing as he read. It was an invitation to the estate of Lord Carnwell, a reclusive nobleman who lived in a sprawling manor on the outskirts of the town. The letter spoke of a dire need for assistance, but it was vague on the details. Kivra, perched on Dane's shoulder, chirped softly, sensing his unease. "Looks like we've got a mystery on our hands," Kivra, Dane said, standing and donning his cloak. "Let's see what this Lord Carnwell wants." The cursed manor. The manor was a towering, Gothic structure shrouded in mist. Its windows glimmered faintly with the flicker of candlelight, and the air around it was unnaturally cold. Dane's boots crunched on the gravel path as he approached the door, and Kivra clung tightly to his shoulder, her sharp eyes scanning their surroundings. Inside, Lord Carnwell greeted them, a tall, gaunt man with silver hair and a face lined with worry. "Thank you for coming," he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion. "I've heard of your exploits, and I am in desperate need of your skills." Carnwell led them to his study, where he explained the situation. An ancient artifact, known as the Mirror of Veils, had been kept in his family's care for generations. Recently, it had begun to exhibit strange behavior, glowing faintly at night, whispering incomprehensible words, and even pulling objects into its surface, never to be seen again. Last night, Carnwell continued, it claimed my youngest son. He vanished before my eyes, pulled into the glass. I fear the mirror is cursed. Dane frowned. And you want us to retrieve him? Carnwell nodded. If it's possible. But if the mirror is truly beyond redemption, I beg you to destroy it. Into the mirror. The mirror was kept in a grand hall, covered with a black shroud. Dane and Kivra approached cautiously. When Dane pulled the cloth away, Kivra hissed softly. The surface of the mirror rippled like water, and faint whispers emanated from its depths. Without warning, a tendril of silvery light shot out, grasping at Dane's arm. Kivra acted on instinct, leaping onto the tendril and biting it with her tiny, sharp teeth. The tendril recoiled, and the whispers grew louder, almost angry. We have no choice, Dane said grimly. We're going in. With Kivra clinging to his shoulder, Dane stepped through the mirror. The other world. They emerged into a strange, dreamlike landscape. The sky was a swirl of colors, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with life. Floating islands drifted lazily overhead, and streams of light wound their way through the air like ribbons. Kivra's eyes darted everywhere, taking in the alien beauty. Dane's focus was sharper. He spotted a trail of footprints leading away from the mirror's entrance. The pair followed the trail, encountering strange creatures along the way. Wisps of light flitted around them, whispering in a language neither could understand. At one point, a massive, snake-like beast with eyes of molten gold blocked their path, but Kivra's agility proved crucial. She leapt onto the creature's head, distracting it long enough for Dane to land a decisive blow. The rescue. At last, they found Carnwell's son, a boy no older than 10, trapped in a crystalline cage. The mirror's tendrils wrapped around the cage like a cocoon, pulsing with energy. Kivra's nimbleness once again came to the fore. She slipped through the gaps in the tendrils, her sharp claws slicing through the silvery threads. The mirror seemed to writhe in pain, and the whispers grew deafening, but she persisted. With a final bite, she severed the last tendril, and the cage shattered. Dane scooped the boy into his arms, but the world around them began to collapse. The mirror, angered by their defiance, was drawing everything back into itself. Time to go. Dane shouted, sprinting toward the portal with Kivra on his shoulder. They leapt through the mirror just as the hole behind them imploded, the mirror shattering into 1,000 shards. A hero's feast. Back at the manor, Lord Carnwell wept with gratitude, embracing his son tightly. You've done more than I could ever repay, he said to Dane and Kivra. You're welcome here any time. The Lord insisted on hosting a feast in their honor. Kivra, now something of a hero herself, was given a seat of prominence on the table, where she enjoyed an array of treats, sweet berries, roasted nuts, and even a tiny dish of cream. As the evening wore on, Dane leaned back in his chair, smiling at his tiny companion. You never cease to amaze me, Kivra, he said. What would I do without you? Kivra chirped softly, her golden eyes gleaming with pride. She knew the adventures weren't over, far from it. But for now, she was content, basking in the warmth of companionship and the glow of another story well told. And so, the lizard and the knight continued their journey, ever ready for the next challenge, the next tale, and the next chapter of their extraordinary partnership.